What's happening, guys? I have to admit, I miss the M240i. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. I used to have a black 2017 M240i with beautiful red interior, and I absolutely loved that car. And I ended up trading that car in for an M2 in Long Beach Blue. And for the most part, I've never looked back. But there are a couple things that I do miss from that car. Now, the first thing that I miss about the M240i is the adaptive suspension. The M2 has static suspension, so you can't change the suspension setting on this. You get the firm suspension, and that's it. What you got's what you got. So if you got a bumpy road, it is what it is. You just have to deal with it. And for the most part, I really don't mind, but I do miss being able to cruise comfortably. And that's not to say the M2 is not comfortable, because it is, for the most part, a pretty comfortable car. I do miss just leaving it in comfort and just driving wherever I need to go and just getting there in like a peaceful, quiet, cruising kind of a way. I do miss that sometimes, and this is one of those days because it's pretty hot out. It's only 77 degrees out, but it feels much hotter than that because you've had a lot of cool days. So today, with it being a much warmer day, it feels much hotter than it actually is. And I really want to have the AC on, and I have that on right now for the purpose of recording. But as I'm driving, because this car sounds so good with the N55, I always drive with the windows down. It's not very luxurious to drive it with the windows down, if that makes sense. You really want to drive it with the windows up, have that, insulation, keep all the outside noise out. You want it to be a nice, quiet kind of drive, and you don't really get that much with the M2. Part of that, obviously, is my fault for driving with the windows down all the time, because I want to hear this glorious sound that the car makes. Now, to touch on what I pretty much just touched on, and that's the sound. I don't miss the sound of the B58 and the M240i at all. However, what I do miss is the fact that you can drive that car much quieter than you can drive this car. This car, even on comfort, on the highway, and this is the manual, so it only has 6 gears. If you're driving like 70 miles an hour, like you're pretty much at 3,000 RPM. And 3,000 RPM for average driving purposes is pretty loud. You can noticeably hear the engine is humming, it's there, it's making noise, you know it's there. When I had the M240i, it wasn't as loud, so I could drive it much quieter, and it was a bit more luxurious in that aspect, and I do miss that sometimes. And with that too, this being the 6-speed manual, because it only has the 6 gears, like I said, you're always cruising at a higher RPM, whereas my M240i, I had the ZF8 transmission, which is a phenomenal transmission. But one of the things I really miss about it is it had the 7th and 8th gear of overdrive, so you can really cruise. Like when you would cruise on the highway at really good cruising speeds, you're only driving at like 15 to 1700 RPMs. Like that's really it. It is great from a fuel saving perspective, which is kind of whatever. It's nice to save a bit of money on fuel, but let's be honest, if I have an M2, I don't really care all that much about fuel prices. But let's be honest, it is still nice to drive the car quietly and peacefully at like 1700 RPM. I do miss that sometimes. I really, really do. Then another thing that I miss about my M240i, and I can do this to this car, but I just really don't want to at the same time, is my tinted windows. On my M240i, I had tinted windows. It was really nice because it felt more luxurious. You felt more closed off from the world. Sun wouldn't beam in here, and it just felt more enclosed. It felt more luxurious. Like I was in my own little world, in my own little bubble, and I do miss that feeling. I don't really get that in this car. While I've debated getting window tints on this car because it would just look really good, I also don't want window tints on this car because I've kind of developed this mindset towards making this car look a bit more exotic, I guess you could say. And what I mean by that is, if you look at a lot of like high-end sports cars, like your true exotic cars, like your Ferraris, your Aston Martins, in their classic specs of like red with tan interior, or like a beautiful silver Aston with whatever interior inside, a lot of times what you'll notice is they don't have tinted windows. Their windows are like perfectly clear, and you can see the beauty of the interior. And that's kind of the look that I want to go for with this car. Like, I want to be able to walk by and look inside this car and say, wow, that's actually kind of a nice interior. Yeah, they have a 6-speed manual there. They got some carbon fiber in there. And that's kind of the look I want to go for with this car. I want people to be able to look inside and say, oh, that looks kind of nice inside. It's a nice tight little cabin. You know, granted, it is kind of crappy plastic material everywhere, but I hope you get what I mean with that, if that makes sense. So that's why I don't want to tint these windows. But getting back to it, kind of to summarize the whole thing, I really miss the luxury of my M240i. And I made a whole video comparing the M2 to the M240i and kind of what their niches are and what their purposes are. And the main point that I was making in that video is that this, for all intents and purposes, is a sports car. The M240i is a luxury car that has some power behind it. That is the purpose of the M240i. At the end of the day, it is a luxury 2 Series. It is just the most top-of-the-line 2 Series you can buy without getting into the M's. That aspect is something that I'm really kind of missing lately with this car. And I don't know why that is. Like, I do like my luxury cars. I really do. I like my Bentleys. I like my Rolls Royce. I do like the beauty and luxury of an Aston Martin. However, it's not really my style. Like, my style is always leaning towards the sports car. And I think I'm always going to lean towards the sports car. At the same time, maybe something in me starting to change. You know, next year I'm going to be turning 30, and maybe I'm getting old. Maybe 30 is that magic number where I'm starting to look at luxury cars a bit more. And that's not to say I'm looking at them in place of sports cars. I just kind of wish that I had a luxury car alongside a sports car. Like, this has enough luxury that, yes, you can consider it kind of a luxury car compared to most cars like my daily driver, my Subaru Impreza. Comparing those two, yes, this is a luxury car. However, at the same time, in a lot of ways, I treat my Subaru Impreza as more of a luxury car than I do this. A luxury car, to me, you're supposed to be able to drive relatively quietly and peacefully. You're not really driving all that high above the speed limit. You're driving like the center or right lanes, and you're just letting the car take you where you need to go. You're letting the car drive you. You're not driving the car. I do that a lot of the times with my Subaru. Like, I'll put on maybe sometimes like classic music, or sometimes I won't put on any music at all. And I'll just let the car quietly just drive me. And I say quietly. Right now I have the classic Subaru rattle with the heat shield under the car, so it's not very quiet at all. And my wheel bearings are going out on that car, so it makes a lot of noise. But all that stuff aside, I treat it as more of a luxury car. Like, I get in, it's quiet, it takes me where I need to go, and I have no real complaints about comfort in that car. And to me, that car is more comfortable than this in a lot of ways. Now, someone in my family does have a Lexus. They have a ES350 from like 2010, and it's old now. It's an old luxury car, but my God, that thing has more luxury features than this car. Like, that car has cooled seats that still work in 2024. My seat warmer in my Subaru doesn't even work anymore. And you're telling me this Lexus has cooled seats that work? I don't know. It gave me another taste for luxury that I think I want. For whatever reason, I am missing my M240i. And I think the reason is because I'm craving that luxury that I don't really have in this car. This car is just loud. It's not an uncomfortable car, but it's not the comfiest. Like, my 13 Impreza is comfier than this car, and that says a lot. Let me know what you guys think. Have you ever bought a car that was a sports car that you upgraded from another car, but then you missed that car for whatever reason? Let me know. And let me know you guys' thoughts on luxury versus the sports car aspect, the great battle of a luxury car versus a sports car. Let me know you guys' opinion on that, because I'd love to hear it. And if you like this video, if you like these thoughts, leave me a like, subscribe if you want to see more videos. And that's going to be it for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time.